is Jessica, and this is my recovery story. My addiction started with an eating disorder. I was made fun of and bullied when I was younger, and I would obsess over dieting and exercising, and eventually that led to me taking pills and manipulating doctors. When I was in high school, I started drinking and partying and moving on to recreational drug use, and eventually it got to a point where it had to be every day for me. It was never enough. My friends could stop and, go to work the next day, whereas I had to continue. It led to the point where I had to use at work, I had to use at school, and it was becoming an issue and ruining my life. I had friends, but I felt like I never fully connected with people. I felt like I was different, and I felt like there was something wrong with me. I felt like I could never reach people, and when I felt intoxicated, I felt like I could connect with people. I felt like I was a part of, and that was like a high that I always chased. And every time I felt intoxicated, every time I could go to parties, every time I could take any sort of drug at any social event, I felt comfortable and I felt full. I felt connected. That to me was like a high I always chased. Some experiences I had that I knew this was getting out of control was I would wake up not remembering anything that happened the night before. Eventually, it started to affect my jobs. I dropped out of school. It affected friendships. I started getting into arguments with people. It affected any intimate relationships I had. I was hanging out with the wrong people. I started cutting. My eating disorder spiraled out of control. We try to use these things to fill a void. Eventually, it's not enough. And for me, it was like I was waking up miserable every day. It wasn't to feel high anymore. It wasn't to feel good anymore. I was getting high to not feel sick. My self-esteem was so low that I wanted to end my life. The first time I went to treatment, I didn't take it seriously. I was exposed to AA for the first time, and I went into a room of Alcoholics Anonymous, and a girl was talking about how she wanted to lay on the train tracks. And it scared me, and I was 17 years old, and I ran out of the room, and I was like, this is not for me. I don't relate to any of this. Eventually, 5 years later, I realized that I could be that girl, that I could relate to that girl. Relapse is definitely a part of my story. I wound up in and out of jail, in and out of treatment centers, in and out of sober livings, and detoxing off people's couches. I would go in there, get some clean time, and think that I was ready to face the world again. And I would come back and wonder why I was back in treatment again. And sometimes I would go back in treatment because I had nowhere else to go. That's where my addiction takes me. After going to about 9 treatment centers back home in Chicago, I decided to go out to California, and eventually I wound up in Broadway Treatment Center. Had a rough patch the first time I was there. I knew I wanted to be sober, but I didn't want to do the work. My motives weren't straight. I think what truly stood out to me about Broadway is that the staff genuinely cares about you. Knowing that I needed to get help again, I reached out back to them, and I was serious the second time I came through. I found my sponsor at Broadway. They have connections to people that are serious about getting sober. I was able to work my steps through Broadway, and they helped me along the way, and I had a lot of rough patches. I went through ups and downs. I walked out of groups screaming and yelling, and they were understanding, and they held my hand through it. And I'm forever grateful for that. Truly, like, I wouldn't be where I am today without this place. I am a completely different person now that I'm sober. My sobriety date is February 18th, 2016, so I'm coming up on 15 months. It's been a roller coaster, but it's been an absolute blessing. You know, and I can talk about all these things that I have today, like I have no legal issues whatsoever. You know, I have a license back that I haven't had in years. I have a job at Broadway, helping other girls, helping other people go through what I went through. Being able to like be on the other end and tell them that I was once in their seat, watching them grow is amazing. You know, all these material things are great, but what's truly beautiful is to be able to look in the mirror and not hate myself. To be able to look into my eyes and to be able to accept who I am. To be able to be closer to my family, 2,000 miles away from home, than I ever was living under their roof. That's truly amazing to me. To have other girls say that I can help them when I never thought that I could ever help anybody. I was handed these cards like I was just meant to be a junkie, and that was just how it is. And I have purpose today. I have a purpose in my life today. And that's what sobriety has given me. That's what Alcoholics Anonymous has given me. That's what God has given me. That's what Broadway Treatment Center has given me.